In this lesson, we're going to continue learning about graphing and solving inequalities. We must first solve in order to be able to graph them. We're going to start off with example 1. Notice how it is set up very similar to the equations that we solved. The only difference is we have an inequality symbol as opposed to having an equal sign. So we're still going to draw a line down our symbol, and then we're going to circle our variable because that's what we're working to isolate. What do you think is the first step in solving this inequality? We're going to subtract 7 on both sides of the inequality symbol. That's going to give us x. The symbol is going to stay the same as greater than, and 13 minus 7 is 6. So our final answer is x is greater than 6. If we were to draw that as an inequality graph, we would start at 6. I have my numbers increasing, 7 and 8, and my numbers decreasing, 5 and 4. I have my arrows on the end to show that it is going on forever if I was to continue numbering. It's an open dot because it is not equal to, and it is going to be an arrow to the right because I'm a greater than symbol. I know that because the bigger side comes first when reading left to right. Go ahead and try your best on example 2. So for example 2, again, we're going to have line down the inequality symbol. We're going to add 8 to both sides of our inequality in order to isolate our variable. That's going to cancel, and we're left with x is less than or equal. Negative 19 plus 8 is going to be negative 11. Keep in mind, it's like I have 19 negatives and I have 8 positives. After I have the ones that cancel, I'm left with my negative 11, and that's how I get my x is less than or equal to negative 11. Graphing it on a number line, I'm going to start with negative 11 in the middle, and I'm going to have negative 10 and negative 9 as I increase, and then I'm going to have negative 12 and negative 13 as I decrease. I'm going to have a closed dot because it's an equal to, and my arrow is going to go to the left because I'm a less than. Also notice how the arrow of the symbol matches. So it's almost like you're taking that symbol and making it the arrowhead. Same thing over here. We had our greater than, and it matches our greater than arrow. Try your best with example 3. X is greater than or equal to negative 27. I'm going to have a closed dot because it's an equal to, and my arrow is going to go to the right because it is a greater than, so my answers are going to be increasing. Again, noticing how the symbol matches my arrowhead. What is different about example 4? What you may notice is that you have the x on the right side of the inequality. You have 2 choices. You can either flip the inequality at the end, or you can rewrite it from the beginning. I'm going to choose to rewrite it from the beginning. So I'm going to make what's on my right side on my left, and this is the very important part. Notice how it would be x minus 5. If I'm reading it backwards, this is actually a greater than symbol. So I'm going to have a greater than symbol when I flip the inequality to be able to have my variable on the left side. And of course, I have my 11. So these are the exact same inequality. The only difference is when I want my variable to be on the left side, I had to pretty much flip this entire thing over. Now, go ahead and solve. Get x is greater than 16. And again, notice how my symbol matches my arrowhead. Go ahead and try your best on example 5. So we're going to line down the inequality symbol, circle our variable. 6 is multiplying x because 2 things touching, no symbol between, means multiplication. So our inverse operation is to divide by 6. X is less than or equal. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. 42 divided by 6 is 7. So my final answer is x is less than or equal to negative 7. I'm going to have a closed dot because it's equal to, and I'm going to have an arrow to the left because it's less than, and again, notice how my symbol matches my arrowhead. Try example 6. So example 6 is going to be a little bit different, but the solving process is the same. So I know I need to isolate the variable x, which is being multiplied by -7. So I'm going to divide both sides by a -7. That is a huge red flag. Whenever I am dividing or multiplying by a negative, I am going to flip the inequality symbol because I am changing the sign of my answer. So I have x. I'm going to flip this greater than symbol. It's now a less than. And a positive divided by a negative is a negative. 63 divided by 7 is 9. So it's very important to know when you multiply or divide by a negative, you are going to flip the inequality symbol. And that's, of course, because the answer over here is going to have the opposite sign that it had to begin with. So we noticed it was a positive, and our final answer was a negative. And that's because we divided by a negative. So it's very important we remember, if you multiply or divide by a negative, you flip the inequality symbol. I like to circle the inequality symbol because that's my clue that I have to remember to flip it when I rewrite my answer. Open dot because it's not equal to, and an arrow to the left because it's now less than, and noticing how my symbol matches my arrowhead. Try example 7. Example 7, we have our variable being divided by 4, so our inverse operation is to multiply. Notice how I'm multiplying by a positive, so I'm not going to flip the inequality symbol. And I get x is greater than -24. I only flip it when I multiply or divide by a negative. What I multiplied and divided by was positive, so that's the reason why I do not flip the sign. Open dot because there's no equal to bar, and an arrow to the right because it's greater than. Go ahead and try example 8. Now notice, example 8, what's different? We have our variable on the right side. So I like to go ahead and rewrite it. When I rewrite it, I have what's on the right is now on the left, but I have to remember if it was the greater than side pointing to it, I'm still going to have the greater than side pointing to it. So all I did was just take my problem and flip everything over, which includes my inequality sign. Now to solve it, I'm going to multiply both sides by a negative. Woo, woo, multiplying by a negative, multiplying by a negative. I'm going to circle my inequality symbol because that reminds me my final answer will have it flipped because I am multiplying by a negative. So my final answer is x is less than or equal to positive 27. Close dot because it is equal to, arrow to the left because it ended up being a less than, and notice again how my arrowhead matches my symbol. You must remember to flip the inequality symbol when you multiply or divide by a negative. Go ahead and try example 1. Solve it and graph it. So when solving, we subtract 1 first because that we always do what's being added or subtracted before we do what's being multiplied or divided. We get 4x is less than or equal to 12. Again, we're going to continue solving by doing inverse operations. The 4 is multiplying, so the inverse is to divide. So we get x is less than or equal to 3. We did not flip the inequality symbol because we divided by a positive. It's going to be a closed dot, and my arrow is going to go to the left. Notice how it matches my inequality symbol because it's less than, so my answer range is decreasing. Go ahead and try example 2. So we do need to be checking if we need to simplify. Notice how there's no parentheses and there's no like terms. So we can go ahead and solve by first moving what's being added or subtracted. We get negative 9x is greater than or equal to 25 minus 7 is going to be 18. We divide both sides by negative 9. Notice, dividing by a negative, dividing by a negative. I'm going to circle the inequality symbol so it reminds me to flip it because I divided by a negative. So we get x, I flip the symbol, now it's a less than or equal to. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. 18 divided by 9 is 2. We go ahead and graph our answer. It's a closed dot, arrow to the left. Because it's less than, notice how my arrowhead matches my symbol. Go ahead and try example 3, keeping in mind that you'll probably want to flip the entire equation to begin with so that your variable's on the left side. And I get x is less than negative 8. Checking my graph, I'm going to have an open dot with an arrow to the left. Because it's less than, my values are decreasing. Open because it's not an equal to. You've completed the lesson notes for this section. Go ahead and complete the practice problems for this section to check your understanding. You are amazing.